Hey everyone, today we are going to go over 3 different grace builds that can improve your gameplay. In the past there was usually one main build to follow, but now I recommend learning a few different ones. Each build works well in different situations and I will explain when and why you should use each one. The idea is to give you more flexibility with your items so you can adapt to the game better. If you like this type of content, let me know and I will keep making more videos like this. Let's get started. Our first item in almost every game will be Yumu's Ghost Blade, and honestly this probably isn't surprising to most of you. Despite the small range penalty it has, this item is still one of the best starting items for Graves. The build path is smooth and the components are pretty affordable, so you don't have to worry about recalling with 1.3k gold just to grab Quiver like in the past. What really makes Yumu's Ghost Blade stand out is the extra movement speed and the item's active ability, which are perfect for Graves. As a jungler, the movement speed is everything. It means faster clears and more importantly, more ganks. The quicker you move around the map, the more opportunities you have to make plays. Plus, since it's so cheap, you can expect to have it finished before 10 minutes in most games, making you one of the only players on the map with completed item at that point. This early power spike can give you a huge advantage and really help you control the tempo of the game. Next up, let's talk about the Collector. It shouldn't come as a surprise that this item pairs so well with Graves' kit. Since Graves has this reload mechanic, his auto attacks can feel a bit limited at times. The extra damage the Collector provides is always a huge bonus. Sure, it's not the cheapest item at 3000 gold, but at that price the stats it offers are absolutely perfect for Graves. You get 50 attack damage, 10 lethality and 25% critical strike chance, all stats that fit into Graves' playstyle really well. The one downside is Cloak of Agility as part of the build path, which can feel a bit awkward to build early on. However, usually by the time you would buy the cloak, you have enough to buy the whole item. The beauty of the Collector is how well it fits into pretty much any build. Whether you are building crit or lethality, this item shines. It scales beautifully with other crit items, but it also fits well into lethality builds, although I won't be diving into lethality builds for Grace in this guide. Honestly, I don't think lethality is the best route for Grace in Season 15 unless Riot decides to make some changes down the line. Immortal Shield Bow, which is still, despite being weakened over the years, the best defensive option for Grace. It's the ideal third item if you are up against squishy opponents or champions who can burst you down quickly like assassins. The 25% crit chance it provides helps you scale nicely into the late game, but don't worry, your damage won't suffer. You will still get 55 AD from the shield bow, and with the items you have already built, your damage will stay strong. This item will be part of almost every Grace build in Season 15. The only real difference is whether you buy it as your third item, second item, or maybe even last, depending on the situation. I will get into that in a bit. As I mentioned, the Immortal Shield Bow is perfect when you are facing champions with high burst damage. It offers both damage and survivability, making it a core part of your build in most games. With this item, you will be in a great spot with a solid mix of offense and defense, which is exactly what Grace needs to stay relevant in almost every match. Despite facing squishy champions, your next item will likely be Lord Dominic's Regards. There is not much to say about this item except that it's the best armor penetration option for Graves and no other item even comes close. It has incredible synergy with the rest of your build. Grace is known for struggling against armor stackers and tanky champions, so getting as much armor pen as possible is key. Lord Dominic's is your go-to for that and there is no real substitute. By the point you build this item, which in general is your fourth item, even squishy champions will have high base armor or build defensive items. That being said, let's briefly talk about Mortai Reminder, since it still exists and can be useful in certain situations. Mortai Reminder is a weaker alternative to Lord Dominic's, but it's built for a different purpose. You will want to pick this up if the enemy team has champions with significant healing, think Soraka, Vladimir or any other champions who rely on healing. My personal rule is to ask my team to build anti-heal if we are up against healing heavy enemies. If the enemy team doesn't have at least 2 champions with annoying healing, I'm sticking with Lord Dominic's. In most cases, I let my teammates handle the anti-heal since they usually get more value from it than I do. As Graves, Lord Dominic's regards should be your choice in about 90% of your games, it's just that good. To round out this build, the last item you will want to pick up is Infinity Edge. This item doesn't need much explaining. It's the best item for crit builds and any build focuses on crit will benefit from it. The downside is it's pretty expensive, which is why you will want to pick it up as your final item. Thankfully, Riot buffed Infinity Edge in this patch, making it slightly cheaper, which is a nice little boost for us Grace players. With Infinity Edge, this will be your highest damage build, absolutely shredding through squishy targets. Now we are not going to be one-shotting squishies with single out attacks like in the old days, but I have been having a lot of fun with this build and can highly recommend it to any Grace main who is looking for consistent high damage setup in Season 15. This build will help you deal massive damage over time and keep up the pressure throughout. On the second build, which is more suited for when you are up against bruisers or champions that can stack a lot of armor. I won't go too in depth into the item choices here since I already explained most of the item in the first build, but I will give you the key points. For this setup, you will want to pick it up when facing champions like Jarvan, Viego or Volibear. It's similar start to the first build, begin with Humus Ghostblade for the early movement speed and power, then go Collector second. At this point it's the same as the Squishy Champions build, right? The third item in this case will be Lord Dominic Regards or Mortal Reminder if there's a lot of healing on the enemy team. As I mentioned before, I personally prefer Lord Dominic for the armor penetration, but it really depends on the situation. Infinity Edge comes in as the fourth item to ensure you have still got solid damage against these tankier bruisers. And then for your final item you will go with Immortal Shield Bow. I believe Shield Bow offers better value than Bloodthirster in this situation, but I will explain the Bloodthirster later on if you are curious. This build gives you a great balance between damage and tankiness, letting you take on those bruisers and armor stacker champions while still hitting hard. Now let's talk about the final build, which is perfect when you are up against really beefy champions. This is the setup you will want when facing champions like Ornn, Malphite or Rammus, those tanks who are extremely hard. For this build, we are going to skip Yumu's Ghostblade despite it being a solid item. The reason is simple, we need something that's better suited for dealing with these beefy champions. You will start with Collector. Now I know this might seem odd since Collector is often associated with squishy targets, but hear me out. The reason you pick it up here is because Collector gives you solid damage against squishier targets like enemy AD carries, mid laners, and because it builds into crit, it transitions well into auto crit items, which is the second item you want is Immortal Shield Bow. This gives you the survivability you need while still letting you dish out plenty of damage. Next, Lord Dominic's Regards will always be your third item in this build. For your fourth and fifth items you will pick up Infinity Edge or Bloodthirster. You will build one as your fourth item and then other as your fifth. Now here's where Bloodthirster comes in. If you're facing a team with a lot of burst damage and need more survivability, then it's a good idea to build Bloodthirster as your fourth item, giving you extra lifesteal and tankiness, then finish your build with Infinity Edge. On the other hand, if the enemy team doesn't have a lot of bursts, you can go with Infinity Edge first and then finish with Bloodthirster for more damage and sustain. Final build gives you enough damage to handle tanks while also providing the survivability you will need to outlast those long team fights. Let's talk about boots, because this is something that often gets overlooked and I get asked a lot about when to upgrade boots, when to buy them, and which boots to get. I will go over runes later, but let's focus on boots first. If you are running Dark Harvest, you will definitely want to get tier 1 boots early on. There is really no wrong time to buy these, and you can even pick them up after your first recall if you don't have enough gold for a longsword. It's generally a good idea to aim for boosts with your first recall. The extra movement speed is super important and having that early on can really help your clears and ganks. However, if you don't get them right away, then it's fine too. The key is to make sure you have at least tier 1 boots by the time you finish your first item, whether that's Yumu's Ghostblade or Collector. Now let's talk about tier 2 boots and tier 3 boots, thanks to the Feast of Strength buff. Personally, I don't feel the need to upgrade to tier 2 boots until after I have completed my first 2 core items. This could be Yumu's and Collector or Collector and Shield Bow. I prefer to pick up tier 2 boosts after those 2 items because once you get Yumu's, an extra Dirk is a huge power spike. Delaying that power spike just to upgrade boosts doesn't seem worth it to me. In most cases, you can stick with tier 1 boots if you don't need the additional benefits of plated steel caps or mercury threads. For me, about 90% of the time, I'm picking up mercury threads on graves because I already get a lot of armor from my grid stack. Plus, Riot just nerfed plated steel caps, so unless the enemy team is full auto attack champions, stick to mercury threads. As for upgraded boots, once you have them, honestly I don't think it's as important as it used to be. I used to think the upgrade provided a huge advantage, but now I prefer to delay upgrading to tier 3 boots as much as possible. I would rather focus on getting my 4th item or even my last item before spending too much on boots. After I finish my core build, that's when I usually upgrade my boots to tier 3. This approach gives me more advantage and survivability, which I find more valuable in most games. Before I finish my video with runes, let's talk about situational items as well. There are a few choices out there. The first item I want to discuss is Rapid Fire, which is typically purchased after selling your boots. You will be slower, sure, but the extra movement speed from the item is really nice. If you ever need extra range, then with Yumu's Ghostblade and this item, you will make up for the lost movement speed from not having boots. The other item would be Serpent's Fang. Once again, whenever the enemy team has mostly champions with annoying shields, then this item has a lot of value. If you need this one, then buy it as your 4th item because the first 3 items are a must. In certain games, Ma has great value as well, like the enemy team has AP mid, AP jungle, and maybe their support is AP too. Then, despite me not liking this item that much anymore, in those specific scenarios, it's a great buy as your 3rd or 4th item. I consider Mortal Reminder to be a situational item as well, so like I said earlier, only go for this if you really need the anti-heal from it and the rest of your team cannot afford it for some reason. Otherwise, LDR is a much better buy. The last item as a situational buy will be Guardian Angel. If you are the strongest member in your team and you are facing AD champions, on top of that you feel like if you die you will lose the game, then this item is amazing as your 4th or 5th item. I wouldn't buy it sooner though, but usually as your last item it's the best. I want to mention jungle pets as well, not because these makes that big of a difference. You could even go with green, but it's not as optimal as something like red or blue jungle pet. So which one should you take, and should you buy a health potion? I prefer the blue jungle pet for the movement speed more than the red one. Does this mean blue is better than red? In some cases, sure, but even if I look at statistics, the difference is really small. Red helps with slightly more damage and blue is great overall if you look to escape or to chase someone in the jungle. If you have a preference like me, just stick to your choice. If you need more damage, go with red. What about health potions though? I only buy health potions if I'm against a fighter jungler who might look for early skirmishes like a Jarvan, Alice, Warwick, etc. You get the point. And in a 3 vs 3 skirmish at bot lane, that extra health potion might be the difference maker, so you might as well get one. If I'm looking to invade level 2, then I'm buying it as well because you never know, you might need it even though most of the time you don't. But if I just walk clear and have so scaling lanes, I'm saving my money. Now the best rune and the clear winner in season 15 is the domination page with Dark Harvest. This rune got buffed several times while they nerfed Faithful perk many times, so Dark Harvest is almost always the best. I will explain this in a second as well. Then Sudden Impact will be your best option. You have a dash, you will leave bushes as a jungler many times, so clear winner here. Then we have the new wards. I'm really sad about the loss of Eyeball, but it is what it is, so which one is the best choice right now? For me, that's Grizzly Mementos. The extra haste you get is nice and gives the most value for you. Default is decent and the other option would be Sixth Sense, which got buffed recently, and now that it has no range penalty, I can see this as an alternative. But I don't find it that great on Graves yet, so just stick with Grizzly Mementos. Then for your last rune, Treasure Hunter is the best. The extra gold helps you to snowball, so that gives the most value for you. As for your secondaries for this rune setup, take Triumph for extra strength in fights and Electricity for faster clears and auto attacks. But what about fleet footwork this season? Well, if you go with my third item build, then this rune setup can help. You won't have that many Dark Harvest stacks when you're facing a lot of tanks anyway, so going for more survivability is a better choice. Fleet is still decent if you prefer that over Dark Harvest, but you will have more success with Dark Harvest instead. So for this setup, take Fleet footwork, then Triumph followed by Alacrity and Coup de Grace. This time your secondary page will be Inspiration. Take 3 boots followed by Cosmic Insight. Your dash shards will be Attack Speed, Adaptive Force and Scaling Height. So this wraps up my in-depth Grace build guide for Season 15. Let me know in the comments your rune and jungle pet preferences. Perhaps you missed the good old full lethality Grace too. Let's chat about that in the comments and on my Discord server. If you haven't already, then drop a like and subscribe to the channel for more Grace and jungle related content each week. Free and paid coaching is still available. For more info on my coaching, message me on Discord. Every link will be in the description. Until then, see you all in my next video.